Revenge with Karen.
He tapped his glass twice, crisp and rehearsed, and the room went quiet like a courtroom after a guilty verdict. The steak hadn't even cooled, and already the self-congratulations had begun. "A quick announcement," he said, his voice all bourbon smooth and backslap charm. "Tonight marks a turning point. We're moving away from myths and into profitability." Laughter, applause, forks clinking against wine glasses in some startup version of The Last Supper, never even looked at me. I sat down at the far end of the table, same linen napkin, same overpriced wine, but you'd think I was the intern sneaking leftovers. No name card, no introduction. Just a nod from the event planner who mistook me for someone's plus one. And I'm not exaggerating when I say, the thing they were celebrating, that product, the architecture, the scale logic, the code scaffolding, zero downtime migration protocol, they'd all but turned into a tagline. I built that. Every damn line. From the first whiteboard scribble in an unheated co-working space to the demo that landed us Series B, it was my fingerprints buried in the base of everything. And now I was sitting there, chewing dry steak while they toasted away from myths like I was a ghost story. The CTO, Derek, who couldn't debug a login loop without Googling it first, 5 chairs down grinning like he just solved cancer. He winked at me once in that smug we know the truth way, and I almost stood up right there and flipped the table. But I didn't. I smiled. I clapped. I took another sip of the shitty red blend some junior associate picked because the label had a falcon on it, and I watched them toast to the future they thought they built. My phone buzzed. Group Slack ping. #exec picks great angle of the founders. Founders. There it was. He cropped just out of frame. Like a bad memory they couldn't delete, only edge out with filters and big checks. I went outside to smoke. I don't even smoke. But I needed the air. Standing there under those stupid string lights they always hang at these things to make the moment feel intimate, I caught my reflection in the tinted window. My eyes looked wrong. Not sad, not angry. Just gone. 6 years of skipped birthdays, 3 a.m. fire drills, missed funerals, stress ulcers. I once coded an emergency patch from the ER, while my Roman 4 beeped like a metronome for madness. And for what? So Greg and partnerships can wear Yeezys and say we're a product-led org without choking on the irony. I don't remember walking back inside. I just remember the sound of the CEO laughing too hard, like someone who knew he'd already gotten away with something. The board member beside him asked something. I didn't catch what, but I did catch the reply. Yeah, that whole early team was scrappy. Good instincts, but it's time for professionals now. My fork hit the plate harder than I meant it to. A couple heads turned. I smiled again. That same hollow, HR-friendly smile I'd been perfecting since they brought in culture coaches. And that's when the first seed took root. That was the moment, not when they pushed me out, not when I found the ledger, not even during the call where everything came crashing down. No, it was right there over burnt steak under fairy lights, with some idiot toasting to myths and forgetting the only reason he had anything to toast at all. You don't erase a ghost by pretending it didn't exist. You just give it reason to haunt. The invite came in at 6:12 a.m. sharp. Subject line, quick sync calendar hold. No context, no agenda, no pleasantries. Just 3 names on the call. Me, HR, and legal. That's like getting an envelope in the mail with black tape on it. Doesn't matter what's inside, it ain't good. I showed up anyway, still in my hoodie, coffee half drank, and soul half gone. I could already smell the boilerplate HR breath before I clicked join. You know the tone, empathetic, but detached, like they just read a BuzzFeed article called How to Fire a Human Without Crying. Stacy from HR smiled like she was about to tell me my dog died peacefully in its sleep. "We're undergoing a realignment," she said. "A strategic restructuring." I blinked. Once, twice. That was their favorite word lately, realignment, not layoffs, not firings, just a gentle chiropractic adjustment to the human backbone of the company. She kept talking. I tuned her out the way you do a bad podcast ad. Legal was there, nodding silently like a bobblehead strapped to a tax form. When she finally stopped talking, she dropped it. A severance package slid into my inbox like a used napkin. 3 months' salary, accelerated vesting on some of my remaining equity, health insurance till the end of the quarter, and one small clause nestled neatly on page 5, like a tick behind the ear. Waiver of all future claims related to employment, compensation, and equity. Ah, there it was, Witcher's handshake. They were offering me hush money, not a lot, but just enough to make you pause. to make you think about letting it all go, just signing the paper, walking out the back door, and pretending it never happened. But here's the part that set off the internal fire alarm. I hadn't been underperforming. I hadn't missed a deliverable. I hadn't violated a policy, burned a bridge, or raised a red flag. I was, by every metric they cared about, still delivering. Quietly, consistently, I was the metric. So why now? Why suddenly? Why this oddly polished exit route padded with legal lavender and corporate empathy? I said the only thing I could without tipping my hand. I'll take some time to review. Stacy's smile wobbled just slightly at the edges. Legal gave the soft nod of a man who knew the game had just gained an extra inning. No problem, she said. Just get back to us by Friday. She didn't ask if I had questions. She didn't ask how I felt, because none of that mattered. What mattered was getting me gone before I asked them any questions. I ended the call, sat there staring at the offer, read it, reread it, scanned the metadata on the PDF created 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks. They'd been planning this before the toast, maybe even before the launch. My hands shook, but not from rage. Not yet. It was something colder. Silence inside that starts at the base of your spine and climbs like mold. I didn't go back to work that day. I didn't respond to Slack. I didn't check my JIRA tickets. I pulled up my original employment agreement instead, opened a blank doc, and started comparing, word by word, clause by clause. And that's when I noticed it, the absence. Not in what they gave me, but what they left out. There was no mention of my full equity ledger. No breakdown, no cap table. Just a vague allusion to outstanding equity subject to standard terms. It was like getting a menu with no prices and being asked to hand over your wallet anyway. They didn't want to compensate me. They wanted to delete me. But I wasn't signing anything. Not until I knew exactly what they were trying to bury. It was 2:17 a.m., and my ceiling fan was making that busted, slow-blade helicopter noise again. Same rhythm as my thoughts, circling, grinding, refusing to die. I couldn't sleep, not after that severance offer. Not after the sudden HR ambush, the weirdly warm smile, the legal clause that stank like month-old shrimp behind a radiator. So I did what I used to do back in the early startup days, opened my laptop and dove headfirst into the codebase, the shared folders, the digital bones of the company we built. I wasn't sure what I was looking for. Maybe a version history, maybe a missed email, maybe just some proof that I hadn't imagined the last 6 years of my life. The Dropbox folder structure hadn't changed much. Still a mess of cryptic acronyms, abandoned quarterly reports, and forgotten pitch decks named things like New Final 2, PPTX. But deep inside one of the folders marked Finance Temp Do Not Use, which is exactly where the juiciest shit always lives. I saw a document timestamped 4 days ago. Cap table Rev Ops Final signed XLSX. I clicked. It took a second to load, probably from all the blood rushing to my ears. I scrolled past the logo, the legal header, the partner allocations. Then I stopped and scrolled again and again, row after row. Founder names, angel investors, preferred stock, convertible notes, phantom shares, but not me. My name, first, last, initials, alias, old email handle was gone, not misspelled, not moved, not under review, gone like I'd never existed. It was like watching your own obituary pop up while you're still breathing. I just sat there staring as if blinking would make my name reappear, like maybe it was just a bad dream or a filter toggle or a permissions bug. But the math added up. The dilution didn't. There were new entries, names I didn't recognize, holding slivers of equity that used to be mine. Hadn't just cut me out emotionally. They'd erased me financially. This wasn't just ego. This wasn't just some passive-aggressive slide in a board meeting or a missing shout-out in the product launch post. This was theft, premeditated, quiet, paper clean, probably coordinated over the same artisanal coffee where they discussed elevating the brand, and it had already been signed. I checked the file metadata. It was uploaded from Derek's machine. Same Derek who once called me the code whisperer when he needed me to fix his merge conflict at 11 p.m. before a board demo. The same Derek who hadn't spoken a single word to me since that investor dinner. A rage hit me so hard I felt it in my molars. This wasn't just betrayal, it was orchestration. A surgical extraction. Like I was a cyst to be removed quietly before they sold the body. Could feel my heart jackhammering against my ribs as I opened the original cap table from 3 months ago, the one I'd saved like a paranoid idiot, just in case. Side by side, the comparison was nauseating. My steak had been reallocated, folded into a pool, then sliced up and handed out like party favors to junior execs who probably thought backend was a yoga position. And here's the kicker, the dilution clause, one that legally required my written consent for any share redistribution. No sign of it being triggered. No email request. No DocuSign ping. No Slack message. Nothing, because they never asked, because they knew I'd say no, because they thought I'd never check. I sat back in my chair, the glow of the monitor painting my face like a horror movie reveal. My jaw was clenched so tight I thought a molar might crack. They'd erased me from the ledger of my own goddamn work, but I wasn't just some ghost to be swept out of the books. They forgot something crucial about myths. They don't die quietly. By 7 a.m., the sun was coming up and I hadn't slept a second. I was still in the same chair, same hoodie, same hollow chest, staring at two cap tables side by side like they were before and after crime scene photos. The only thing that changed was me, erased, absorbed, reissued, forgotten. But forgetting me was their first mistake. Their second was underestimating how meticulous I can be when I stop giving a damn. So I opened the vault. Not a literal vault, just the dusty personal folder on my cloud drive where I kept everything that ever felt off. Saved emails, old contracts, Slack exports I downloaded before we upgraded to Enterprise, legal PDFs from the early days when we didn't even have a lawyer and just Googled our way through Delaware C Corp filings. All of it. That's when I saw it. Section 6C, Equity Dilution Rights. No dilution, transfer, or reassignment of equity may occur without written and timestamped consent from the holder. That was me, I was the holder. Capital H, I Control plus F'd my inbox. No DocuSigns, no notifications, no signatures, not even a passive-aggressive just looping you in thread. Nothing. They didn't ask, they didn't warn, they just did it. I started compiling. One by one, like threading razor wire through a wedding bouquet. The email from the CEO in year 2 saying, "Don't worry, your equity is locked and safe. No tricks here." The screenshot of Derek bragging in Slack, "Founders keep their shares unless they totally torch the place lol." The onboarding doc where legal back when it was just a freelancer named Kyle wrote, "Equity clause is non-negotiable and permanent." HR message from last quarter when I inquired about any planned adjustments to shareholder distribution and got back a single emoji, person mail. I archived it all, printed copies, encrypted backups, off-site mirror. If they tried to nuke the servers, I'd still have the ashes. My laptop fan was wheezing under the weight of the receipts, but I didn't care. Then I opened Gmail, not work email, my real one, the one tied to nothing. No LinkedIn, no data brokers, no company tentacles. I typed 2 words in the to field, Julia, Esquire, a friend of a friend, corporate litigator, razor sharp, hates bullshit. Subject line, quiet inquiry contract breach. I attached 5 documents, no summary, no rage rant, no sob story, just facts, dates, terms, missing signatures, and 1 line in the body of the email, please confirm breach. No action yet, just visibility. I hit send. I closed the laptop. I didn't text anyone, I didn't call. I didn't scream into the void on Twitter or post vague LinkedIn quotes about resilience. I didn't even show up to work. I just went outside, sat on my porch with a black coffee and listened to the world hum like nothing had happened. Because that's the thing about revenge. If it's loud, it's sloppy. If it's fast, it's traceable. But if it's slow, measured, legal, boring even, it slides under your skin like a splinter made of ice. And the best part? They wouldn't even know it was coming. Not until it was too late to flinch. It started as a whisper, Slack threads lighting up after hours, meetings mysteriously disappearing from calendars, the CFO suddenly growing a spine in budget approvals. That kind of tension only shows up for 2 reasons, lawsuits or liquidity. And this smelled like money. By Wednesday, the whispers became sentences. "Did you hear? Legacy Co's sniffing around. $400 mil. All cash, 0 earnout, Legacy Co. The kind of enterprise dinosaur that swallows startups for breakfast and digests them in quarterly earnings slides. They weren't buying the tech. They were buying positioning, branding, buzz, and we were suddenly very buzzworthy. That's when the irony finally landed like a brick to the face. They had erased me to clean the books, to make the company look like a sleek, founder-light, IP-heavy acquisition target. Like I was a rusted bolt in the chassis. But the moment you erase the one person who wrote half the damn thing, you don't clean the books. You forge them, so I opened LinkedIn. Not my account, a clean one, no photo, no connections. Just a burner with a boring job title and a safe location. I typed it slow. Head of M&A North America, Legacy Co. There he was. Gray hair, smug smile, Georgetown law degree swinging from his endorsements like a lanyard. I sent him a message. 5 sentences. No fluff, no accusation. You're likely already deep into diligence on company name. Please ensure your counsel has reviewed founder equity dilution clauses and any missing consent documentation related to Series C restructuring. There may be material oversights affecting clean title on IP, a former stakeholder. I waited 3 hours, logged out, and deleted the account. That night, our CEO called an urgent sync with legal, finance, and Derek. No agenda, no summary, just a red dot on everyone's calendar titled Prep, Diligence Q&A. The day after that, Legacy Co.'s legal team sent a formal request through our investor rep for full and unredacted founder vesting documentation dating back to incorporation. Not just a summary, not a slide. The whole damn trail. That's when the panic started to show. The internal chatter turned frantic. Legal spun up a new shared folder overnight. Document review privileges were revoked for half the leadership team. Slack messages started vanishing mid-thread like scared birds fleeing a wildfire. Then I got the email, not from the company, from Legacy Co. A courtesy outreach to former officers and contributors, inviting me to a diligence call for historical clarification of early IP structuring. I wasn't supposed to be on their radar, but I was now. I replied 2 hours later, short and sweet, happy to assist. Please copy my attorney for scheduling. The next morning, Julia, my lawyer, texted me one word: leverage. We weren't going to sue. We weren't going to shout. We were going to become necessary, because the one thing acquisition teams hate more than dirty books is incomplete ownership. They'd rather walk away than inherit a landmine. And I had just lit the fuse, calmly, quietly, with a LinkedIn profile no one would ever trace back to me. This was no longer about what they took. It was about what they couldn't sell without me. The shift was almost imperceptible at first, like the first hairline crack in a windshield before the whole thing spiderwebs under pressure. Emails stopped flowing normally. Meeting invites got tighter, smaller. The all hands turned into select hands. People who used to copy half the company on a memo now hit reply privately. And the CEO, he stopped smiling. Then the war room opened. They didn't call it that, of course. They called it Strategic Deal Support HQ, but everyone knew it was a bunker. A sealed conference room on the 17th floor with fingerprint access and blackout blinds. Kind of place you build when you know the plane is leaking fuel midair and you're praying no one smells the smoke yet. That same week, our usually AWOL general counsel was suddenly living in the office. Rumpled suit, empty coffee cups, a haunted stare like he'd just learned what personal liability really meant. Late-night doc reviews, whispered phone calls, endless printer hums from behind locked doors. Word started spreading. The acquisition wasn't stalling, but it wasn't moving either. Legacy Co. wanted clarity, clean ownership chain, clear authorizations, and that meant every stone was getting turned over, including the ones they buried me under. I didn't need to lift a finger. The truth was waking up all on its own. Then, out of nowhere, I got a text. Not from Julia, not from Legacy Co., from someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Maya Ops lead, hey, just so you know, listed you as a Category 2 risk in the internal deal briefing. CFO looked like he swallowed glass. Also, your Slack history's been pulled. Full archive. Compliance teams freaking out. Whatever you're doing, it's working. I stared at the screen for a while. Maya had always been quiet, neutral, too smart to pick sides. But she'd seen everything, the late nights, the early builds, the way I got pushed further and further out of the narrative. She was breaking rank to warn me. It meant one thing: they were sweating. Not because of what I'd done, but because of what I might still do. And that's when I felt it, that cold, crystalline sense of control. The one you only get when you're no longer playing defense. I didn't need to expose anything. Didn't need to storm in waving contracts like a mad prophet. I already knew how this played out. They were the ones chasing signatures now. They were the ones pulling audit trails, scanning Slack exports, comparing versions of documents they thought I'd long forgotten. Every file I had forwarded to Julia already matched against their sanitized versions. Every clause I kept in my back pocket, now glaringly absent from theirs, and every name they'd handed equity to in my place, about to become a liability on a ledger they couldn't clean. I didn't text Maya back, didn't gloat, didn't hint. I simply stood up, made myself a cup of tea, opened my calendar. The diligence call was in 3 days. My official invitation was sitting in my inbox with Legacy Co.'s logo at the top. My name listed clean and proper. Founding Technical Officer IP Contributor, the same name that didn't exist on their internal cap table. Let them squirm. I'd waited this long. I could wait just a little longer. The final call was scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m. Friday, sharp, formal, with all the ceremonial tension of a wedding and the buried panic of a funeral. The invite hit my inbox like a ghost's fingerprint. Subject line: Legacy Co-Acquisition Final Diligence Call All Stakeholders. There it was. My name in plain type, not buried in CC hell, not tacked on as an afterthought, just standing there on its own like it used to back when my signature meant progress. Me, founding technical officer, IP structuring oversight clean. Factual, undeniable. I read it 3 times like an obituary that ended with a resurrection. No one at the company reached out. No emails, no pings, no soft hey, just FYI you're on the call messages from the CEO's assistant. Of course not. He probably didn't even know yet, and I made sure of that. Legacy Co. looped me in directly. Not through them, not because of them. Wanted the one person who could verify whether the company they were buying had actually built what it claimed, or just rearranged enough signatures to fake it. I spent that morning not prepping, not rehearsing, just waiting. 9:55 a.m. rolled around, and I logged in silently. My camera off, my mic muted, a black square among suits and smiles and 6-figure haircuts. The board was there. Our CFO looked like he'd swallowed a broom. Eagle was doing that thing where they stare off screen and pretend not to panic. And then the CEO joined, smiling wide, sleeves rolled up like he was about to sell everyone a dream. He didn't see me at first, not until 9:57. I watched it happen. His face flickered, just barely, as he scanned the participant list. Then he saw it, my name, not in the shadows, not anonymous, official. You could see the internal math racing across his eyes, could feel the thought, who invited her? Why is she here? What does she know? But the clock was ticking, and Legacy Co. doesn't wait. Not for discomfort, not for ghosts. At 9:59 a.m., I opened a new email. To Legacy Co. Legal, Julia, my lawyer, the company's general counsel. No subject, no message body. Just one attachment, original vesting agreement signed PDF dated. Initialed, clause highlighted. Same document I'd signed 6 years ago, back when the company was just whiteboards and ramen and late-night sprints through AWS console logs. Before the CEO decided that a clean ledger mattered more than a clean conscience. I hit send, closed the window, then I waited. 10 o'clock a.m. Legacy Co.'s VP of M and a kicked off the call, friendly and sharp. Before we finalize anything, just a few clarifications on equity history and IP attributions. My camera stayed off. My mic stayed silent. But my name, it was loud. Halfway through the call, just as the CEO was ramping up into his usual symphony of spin, synergies, scalable architecture, organic user traction, Legacy Co.'s lead counsel, a woman named Dana with the kind of voice that can make billionaires sweat through custom tailoring, cut in with surgical calm. Before we proceed to valuation finalization, she said, one quick clarification on the cap table. Click. A shared screen appeared, a spreadsheet. One I'd seen before, my ghost story in Excel form. She zoomed in. Your most recent ownership schedule omits one of the early IP contributors, my name. She said it slow, deliberate. Not a question. A statement with a loaded chamber. The air got tight. You could feel the board shift in their seats. CFO start blinking like a malfunctioning Roomba. Legal froze, and the CEO, he smiled. Too fast, too wide. Yes, he said, clearing his throat. She was offboarded a few months back, amicably, nothing contentious. A strategic realignment. Her equity was redistributed per standard process. Amicably, Dana repeated like she was testing the word for poison. Then she clicked something. New screen. New document. Founding vesting agreement, signed PDF, the very one I had sent. No subject. 1 hour before the call. Clause 6C was highlighted in yellow like a road sign before a cliff. Any equity dilution, reassignment, or modification requires prior written consent from the holder. Dana paused, then turned her camera on. Do you have a record of her written consent? The CEO blinked. Once. Twice. His throat worked like he was swallowing gravel. Well, I'd have to check with legal. It may have been verbal. Our team handles this sort of thing. Dana raised one eyebrow. Just one, devastatingly calm. Verbal consent isn't binding in equity restructuring. Not under your own bylaws, not under Delaware code. We've reviewed the original agreement. Silence. Actual, full, jaw-locked silence. It stretched. 8 seconds, 10. The kind of silence that swells with realization, that eats air out of the room. The chairman of the board leaned forward, squinting at the screen like the letters might rearrange themselves into something forgivable. The CFO pulled out his phone, trying to play it off like checking the weather, but his hands were shaking. Bad. And then came the real gut punch. Dana, still impossibly composed, flipped to the appendix. There in black and white was my signature. Dated, witnessed, filed. No red lines, no ambiguity, no follow-up documentation showing consent to anything. She looked back up, calm as a noose, so again. Just to confirm, your team proceeded with equity reassignment in direct conflict with this clause. You could hear the CEO's soul backpedal. He opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I watched it happen in real time. The unraveling, the realization not just that they'd been caught, but that every person on that call now knew it. The myth wasn't just real, it was in the room, and someone had tried to kill it for parts. Dana didn't need to raise her voice. She just folded her hands in front of her and said the phrase every CEO fears more than an IRS audit. We'll need to pause due diligence until this is resolved. The screen didn't go black, but it may as well have. You could feel the temperature drop through the screen. The board chair's jaw clenched like a vice. The CFO's face turned the color of printer paper. Someone on their side forgot to mute before whispering, "Holy shit." The CEO tried to salvage it, of course he did. Said something about interpretation, flexible vesting language, internal miscommunication. But by then he was just shoveling sand into a crater. Legacy Co's team, silent. They were already writing the investigation checklist in their heads. I didn't speak. Didn't need to. I was still a black square in the gallery view. No facial expression to parse, no voice to react to. Just a presence they couldn't delete, couldn't downplay, couldn't spin. 3 minutes later, Dana wrapped it clean. Thank you all. We'll reach out once legal clarity is established. Click. The meeting ended just like that. I sat there for a moment. No celebration, no rush of adrenaline. Just a long exhale, like the moment after a fire alarm stops and you realize you were clenching your teeth the entire time. Then Julia called. Formal notice of breach goes out today, she said. We're including damages, legal fees, and a clawback review. You'll have it in writing by noon. I said thank you. Nothing more, because this wasn't about a payout anymore. This was about weight. My name had been erased in a spreadsheet, but it echoed in legal rooms now. It mattered, not because I demanded it, but because the truth finally showed up dressed in documentation. At 1:42 p.m., board member I hadn't heard from in years, one of the early investors, back when we were just 5 people in a pitch deck, sent me a message. Short, hesitant. Can we talk? I didn't respond. Instead, I closed my laptop, walked to the kitchen, poured 2 fingers of scotch into the same chipped mug I used when we signed our first term sheet. I stepped outside, leaned against the railing, and stared at nothing in particular. Then I raised the mug and whispered it, not loud, not for show, just for me. To myths, I said, they last longer than CEOs. Big thanks, you legends of the old office days. Subscribe to keep the switch-flicking chaos alive. Your ex-boss is shaking in their loafers.